Salute BookTube, welcome to my channel. Thank you for being here. I'm making this video. I guess it's my May reading wrap-up. My months of May and June has been disrupted. Those of you who are regulars on my channel will know that I'm doing a bit of traveling in these couple of days, couple of months, couple of weeks, actually, not months, couple of weeks between May and June. And that's affected my reading, or at least affected my BookTube video making. So initially I thought I would just come back and then at the end of June just do a wrap-up of my May and my June reading. But I was thinking about it, and there was three events that I'm participating in May, and I didn't want to make my May videos all the way towards the end of June. People will forget the event and forget the creators, etc. So what I did was I actually speed read my way through some of my May reading, not all of it, as we'll see. One of them is halfway done, but I tried to speed read and get a couple of the reading done, and now I can at least talk about what I read and talk about the events. So as I mentioned, there are three events in May. Which one shall we start with? I think the first one we'll start with is In Memory May. This is a BookTube event created by Summer. Her channel is called Reading with Quaker Cats, if I'm not mistaken. I'll link her channel in the description. In Memory May is a reading event in which you're encouraged to read something in memory of a person we have lost. And after watching Summer's video, I decided to follow her route. She, amongst other booktubers that we've lost in the last couple of years, one of them was Sean D. Standfast. I did a small tribute in my May TBR video announcing this event, announcing my participation. And I talked about quite a range of books that Sean was interested in. Summer's doing the same thing. I think she's reading Dracula because Sean loved Dracula. I had a bunch of books to choose from. I decided to go for the shortest book because, again, my time is very restricted. So initially, well, I should first say Sean was a big George Orwell fan. He mentioned and spoke and read about and talked about and read George Orwell a lot on his channel. And I had decided, the TBR video I put up, well, I don't even have it next to me now. Maybe I can get it really quickly. Okay, I had first thought I would read this book, a non-fiction work by George Orwell, Down and Out in Paris and London, just about his time as a really down on his luck individual in Paris and London in the early 20th century, first couple of centuries of the 20th century, first couple of decades, excuse me, of the 20th century. It was a short book. I said, yeah, this will do, but even this was long considering my shortened reading schedule because of my travels. So this edition came at 200 pages. What I decided to do was to find one that's 50% or half as long as Down and Out in Paris and London, and that's this book, Animal Farm. Same edition, this Penguin sort of paperback. This is tiny, 100 pages. This is, I think, taught in a lot of middle school, even elementary school, advanced elementary school readers, maybe. And yeah, about 96 pages. So novella, short story, I don't know what you call it, but I just enjoyed reading this. I just went through it, 96 pages in a couple of hours, but what an enjoyable reading experience. It was also, this was a bit appropriate. I had realized there's a new movie. I think I'm new to this, but I think it's already had its cinema run. I don't know, or is it coming out? I'm not even sure. But there's a Animal Farm movie based on the George Orwell novella. And I don't know, is it targeting children or is it an adult film? I have no idea, or for more mature audiences. But so that was another reason to read this. Maybe I can catch this movie. I don't know if I can. I don't know if it's still in the cinema. But I at least enjoyed reading the book. This was a reread, but I read this in middle school, maybe a long time ago, and I remember liking it then, and I still like it now. This book features Napoleon the Pig as really a stand-in for Stalin. We can go through the George Orwell sort of his history, but he fell in with the communists. He had fought with the communists or the socialists in the Spanish Civil War, and he was a pretty committed communist. I don't have the full biography. Was it Orwell who got injured as well for his troubles fighting for the communist cause in Spain? But anyway, as he grew older, and the situation in Europe and in the Soviet Union especially started to deteriorate under Stalin, he started to fall less and less in love with communism, or at least Stalinism. And this book reflects that. Napoleon the Pig, really, if you read the story, I don't want to ruin too much, but it's a bunch of animal farms take over a farm and institute a socialist paradise, basically. And the pig Napoleon is signified by Stalin, and the references are all there. Again, I'm a bit shady on the history, but there's Napoleon, who's definitely Stalin. There's another pig who's his rival for leadership called Snowball, and I think it's quite clear Snowball is probably Trotsky, who I think Orwellians or Orwell himself and others who believed in the communist promise. Trotsky was their guy, but he was savagely shunned aside and later murdered by Stalin, and Stalin took over full control of the Soviet Union for decades and decades and decades. And that reference is there. Snowball is sidelined from power. He is blamed for all the problems that occur. And we see it. I mean, it starts with a lot of idealism, and the animals are all in, and they everybody's happy, and then slowly it digresses. And then in the second half of the book, this becomes a very dark book. Again, so many references. You've got, the neighboring farms. There's 2 neighboring farms, and that's sort of what the Soviet Union faced. One farm was Nazi Germany. The other farm was probably the Western capitalist countries. And they had to balance the relations between them. There's a sort of insurrection, a war, and I think that's alluding to the Nazi invasion of the Soviet Union, because the animals. Well, I guess I'm spoiling a bit. Let's just say, I won't say what happens, but it's there's an allusion to the Nazi invasion of the Soviet Union. And then there's also the show trials of Stalin, the cooking of the numbers, cooking of the books, the statistics, etc., the reports about production, agricultural production, industrial production. And then also what was the other thing? There was another thing sort of escaped my mind. If I can remember it quickly, there was like the planning, the central planning, like the 5-year plan. A lot of the famine that Stalin's policies created. A lot of that is also discussed in this small book, and again, made for children, but highly readable as an adult. So I was very happy to read George Orwell's Animal Farm in memory of Sean D. Standfast. I will link to Sean D. Standfast's channel as well, although he's deceased. He's got thousands of videos up. It can take you a good decade to watch all his videos, so please do that. Although he's gone, he's actually not gone. He's still with us on BookTube. So that was In Memory May. The other, the second event was actually 2 events, and they're both related to music, or books about music. The first event is called The Sound of May. That's the first one, and it was started by Connor or Caden. I forget his exact name. I'll link to his channel. The other music event, very similar event, you have to read a book about music, was created by my good friend Paul at the Accidental Bookseller, and his event is called May Include Music. And for this, I had decided to read because I have it lying in my library. I don't know why I have it, but I wanted to read it and just get rid of it. This is the autobiography of Anthony Kiedis, Scar Tissue. Anthony Kiedis is the lead singer, the vocalist for the Red Hot Chili Peppers, very famous 80s, and then they had a bit of a slump in the 90s, and then a big comeback in the early 2000s. This is co-written with Larry Sloman, and I think Larry Sloman deserves the credit because it's a fast-paced book. This individual lived a pretty fast-paced life, but like all rock star biographies that we've read, it's just a lot of drugs, just drugs, drugs, drugs. I can just open any page now and start reading, and you're going to find the word drugs or getting high. I'm just going to read I mean, I could read, yeah, I can see it here, but there's an explicit, like a bad word, so I don't know if I want to read it. But yeah, I just opened to a random page, and there was drugs or getting high or scoring coke or shooting heroin. Or it's just... I also, when I highlighted that I would be reading this in my TBR video for the events, the two music events that I just discussed, I got some response on my comments that this person has a very tarnished reputation for womanizing, especially, and that's exactly true. There is some nudity in the pictures of some of his ex-girlfriends, and yeah, it's definitely there. It's definitely there. I think the biggest reason for it is Kiedis. I had read a biography of the band Guns N' Roses. He has a similar background to Slash. These are California kids from the 70s who were brought up in very sort of artistic, sort of very not conformist parents. And they were just exposed to a lifestyle that isn't very typical. And it's very strange. Kiedis' father was sort of, I want to say he's famous, but he sort of was semi-known in the LA, Los Angeles, sort of Hollywood milieu. You know, mostly dealing drugs, but he also was trying to be famous. And Anthony Kiedis, he grew up in that lifestyle, and it shows the sense of, I guess, I don't know, entitlement is the word. He's just, he's thrust into a lifestyle, and he was, from a young age, was introduced to some pretty, or had known some pretty famous people. There's stories in the beginning of this book about he was good, his dad was good friends with Sonny from Sonny and Cher, Sonny Bono and Cher. Other famous people, in the sort of Hollywood musical / acting circles. So that played a part in his sort of, I don't know, narcissistic I think is the right word, lifestyle, and it just increased as he became more and more and more famous. Actually, one could make the argument as he became more famous, he kind of became a bit more humble, but there's a lot of sad stories of just, broken relationships, a lot of just a lot of failed relationships with the opposite sex, but just a lot of and what we get here, of course, this is his autobiography. We're getting a lot of his point of view, what he wants to say, what he wants to get out, and we don't have the point of view of all the other women who he hurt. That's, I mean, I guess that's par for the course, but at least in the book, every woman he describes as, this beautiful, wonderful soul, somebody I loved so much. He's put that all in his books, but the question is, at the time when you were dating them, were you saying that to them? And I think that one is a bit of a question mark. And here he's trying to I guess, he's on the defensive here. I think it's quite clear, because all of his relationships end quite, what's the word, acrimoniously. But I thought just to get an idea of Anthony Kiedis' personality, because Um, he was just to get an idea of his narcissistic sort of attitude. I'm just looking at the page now, and I don't know, is it the right one? Uh, okay, so I'll read it here. It says, I think I didn't feel entitled now that I was becoming famous, and I stayed relatively humble. That was my perception, and I'm sure somebody else had a different take. Yeah, I think so too. I recognize when I feel a sense of entitlement, you get used to having things your way, but I also recognize the absurdity of that. And I'm willing to laugh at myself and to acknowledge that I'm being a spoiled brat, and when I'm not. I found it fascinating and peculiar, more than suddenly thinking I was better than or holier than. Um, um, thought I had seen a better quote, but again, I should have marked this and prepared better. But I think there was a better quote that summed up his uh, his take. I don't know if that was the correct quote, but yeah, you get the idea. You just get the idea. Sorry, BookTube. I noticed that I had to do some editing because I noticed that I had picked the wrong quote from the Anthony Kiedis. I finally found it. It was just I had read the wrong paragraph. It was the paragraph at the end of the page. So I just wanted to read it to give the personality, and I'll add it in the middle of this video, and then so it says again about his entitled just sense of entitlement. I'm sure there were some bloated ego thing happening that I wasn't able to recognize, but I didn't feel like it would last for long. The weird thing is that long before we ever had success on a commercial level, I had already developed a sense of entitlement. I had an unnecessary, unwarranted, unfounded, self-centered sense of entitlement from childhood. In elementary school, I always felt like I should be the president of the school and that I was somehow above the law of the school and I could break the rules. When I moved in with my father, he was arrogant and full of himself, and that carried on to me. So I always had this sense of entitlement and a semi-false sense of self. I would steal because I had that sense, whether it was houses or cars or furniture or cactuses, whatever. I understand how people can be cold and ruthless criminals because I remember at that point of my life, I did not think of the consequences for anybody else involved except me. And the consequences for me were that I got what I wanted. So there you go. It kind of wraps it up. We'll go back to normal scheduling. Yeah, and again, if you want to sum it up in photographs, perhaps it's even more apt. Again, the upbringing that he had with his father. Here's a photo of him at the age of like 12 or 13, and he's smoking a joint. And his father had taken photos of his first ever. This is his first ever attempt at smoking marijuana, and you've got he's taking, and then his reaction, and his father took those photos. So it's that kind of lifestyle, and it just it spirals and spirals. There's a lot of drugs and rehab. To give him some credit, you can tell he's still a hard worker. The amount of hits that they've created, that deserves to be applauded. Um, and I'm trying to think of something else good to say about this individual, but a bit fortunate. He seems to have a strong resistance to drugs. I had read the biography of Keith Richards, the guitarist for the Rolling Stones. He had the same thing. He could just handle his drugs while others couldn't. But we see a lot of rehab, and if you're somebody who's maybe a user and addicted and wants to get off it, this book might have some value to it. Yeah, so that's what I read for the two music reading events. The Sound of May, and May include music, and I'll link the creators below. The final event I wanted to discuss for May is Military May. This is an event where you're encouraged to read books about the military, and there's all kinds of prompts. And I just combined this with my Historathon reading, and I decided to start this. This is Thomas Asbridge's The Crusades. The subtitle is The War for the Holy Land. But if you look closely, you can see my bookmark is right over there. Not in the middle, but I actually stopped it. Again, I'm traveling. I'm not going to take this with me. Traveling is just too big. But what I decided to do, I had noticed as I reached about a third of the book, I said, I don't think I can complete this by the time I travel. It just, I mean, probably I could, but I'd have to do nothing else, and I've been really busy. So what I did was I stopped at part two. So I ended with part one, the Crusader invasion of the Holy Land. And I'm stopping here. Part two says the response of Islam, which I thought was a good place to stop. I don't usually like to break up a book, stop it, take a couple of weeks off and come back to it, but circumstances, hopefully when I come back, it'll still be fresh in my memory. The first Crusades are quite, they're the most written about, the most spoken about, probably the most well-known, and then later it gets, well, I don't know if it's the most well-known, because still Salah ad-Din or Saladin hasn't made his appearance, Richard the Lionheart, we're still very much now, this is the Second Crusade, so, but the event is called Military May. It's started by a booktuber, Patrice. I think her name is Patricia or Patrice. I think the channel is called 2 Minutes Books, 2 Minutes of Books. I'll link it below. And you should check it out. And I'm sure by the end of May, you'll see a lot more Military May discussion groups. Again, I couldn't finish it, but I did want to mention it here in this video and just highlight it. Because I didn't want to come back at the end of June and do something about May when everybody's forgotten the event. So hopefully when I am back from my travels, I'll try to complete this before the end of Historathon. But yeah, so like I said, there was the music book, the military book, the In Memory May. Again, please check out Summer's channel and check out Sean D. Stanfast's channel, although he's no longer with us. But excellent book, Animal Farm. It'll take you a day to read, no matter how busy you are. Less than a couple of hours to read. But yeah, BookTube, I think with that I'll wrap it up. Thank you so much for watching this. Salute.